Welcome to Association Chat. This is your online discussion where we warm ourselves by the virtual fire with the topics of the day, welcoming thought leaders and trailblazers alike to join up in this online home for the community. I'm the host of Association Chat, Kiki L'Italienne, and for this episode, we are going to explore the latest in organizational growth and connection through insight into the meetings industry. And we're going to do this by talking to a very special friend of mine. We have with us Matt Regniér, the founder and CEO of Pleni, the founder and president of IC International Consultants. And I thought he would be great to talk with us because with IMEX America coming up, IMEX being the largest trade show for the global meetings, events, and incentive travel industry, we're eager to talk with Matt about his insights on the industry, his business, and his views on the Las Vegas Convention Center and Mandalay Bay and all of the rest. So here we go. Matt, thank you for joining us today.
Amazing. Thank you very much for having me, Kiki. I really appreciate it. That's really cool. Thank you for the great time we're going to have together.
Oh, we're going to have a wonderful time. And I mean, I'm so glad to see you again. Last time I saw you in person was in Frankfurt for IMEX Frankfurt. And I thought that it might be good to just jump right in and talking about, your decision to attend IMEX America and the significance that it holds for your company, Pleni, and for IC International Consultants.
Absolutely. Originally it was for the association that we created with a bunch of really talented and seasoned event professional at the beginning of COVID. So it was early 2020. And we thought it was making perfect sense to be exhibiting at the IMEX, which is basically the heart of the event industry, like you just said. And IMEX and Karina, that I really would like to again say a huge thank you, appreciated our coming and our approach. And she was saying, yeah, absolutely, let's do it. And they helped us, they supported our insight and said, yes, let's do this kind of you guys being exhibiting at IMEX. So it's been 2 years now that we exhibit at both Frankfurt with the heart of Europe and Vegas in the heart of the US, as well as the Asian visitors as well in the US. It makes perfect sense because we do have consultants who are what we call the Swiss knife of event. They do many production, but they would take care of any sort of job in the event industry, the middle dots in between the agencies, venue, providers, clients. And we are spread over 20 countries to date. So 30 members, 20 countries. It's not huge, but we grow slowly but surely with really talented people. It really is a quality over quantity.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I had the good fortune to be invited to a dinner with you and other members of the association, and I mean, absolutely talented, wonderful people from, as you say, from all over the globe, who, they really believe in and speak to your idea of sourcing locally, and I know that that's really something that you hold to be very important. Can you talk to me a little bit, because I think, especially for this association community, it's interesting to understand a little bit about what drove you to think about founding and starting this association, because that idea of why do we need another association? Why is it important to have the international consultants exist? Can you talk to me a little bit about that story?
Oh, very good point. And again, thank you very much for bringing it up, because you're right. The foundation is sourced locally. There's an aim and goal of sustainability behind it. Absolutely true. And this is the reason why we exhibit at both Frankfurt and Vegas IMEX, to make the community of event industry aware of the availability of those talented event managers around the world. They can source for them because they know the color of the market by heart to open doors for them and venue and sourcing and providers and finding freelancers. They will be your head of pyramid, as we like to say, to open doors and to help you out when you go into a different country. That was the whole purpose of it. So yeah, sourcing locally. Why? Also because in this really crazy period where every single day we read crazy news about climate, and we know our event industry is really something sensitive for us because we love to produce event, but at the same time we're like, oh, and what is it you do for climate,
Mhm.
um, in my view, we all need to have something in mind, an action that we really care about, or put together, so we have a bit of the work that we do, that we produce. And ours was this source locally thing because we do a lot of international. So we thought it would make sense that if we lead by example by sourcing locally human beings, then you can source
Mhm.
locally equipment, gear. And if you source locally, of course, you grow an ecosystem, a local ecosystem, which hopefully in the end would grow with you, and then it creates more jobs opportunity for other people, and sustainable again, viewing in long term for those communities. So I think as event manager, it is our responsibility to have them grow. I've seen too many times at the beginning of my career people going into the same country 3 times in a row and say, oh, it doesn't progress. It's not any
Right.
better compared to last
Right.
year. Yeah, but it's your responsibility. You have to
Yeah.
make it grow. When there's a large event such as the FIFA World Cup, the UN event, those very large scale events, those event managers have to, in my view, create those startups, agencies, freelancers, opportunities, and lead by example. Because those countries who are probably less of experience in the event industry will learn from that
Mhm.
particular experience, and hopefully in the long term will sustain. So it was our goal definitely to do this sourcing locally, both in digital when we were in the COVID period, and now back into in person more. Um, and yeah, the idea also is to share a way of working as a family approach rather than a large 10,000 people group over Facebook, which is great, but it's not
Mhm.
the same approach and the same compilation or combination between individuals.
Well, and I love that metaphor for this being like a family, because as we all know, every family has its struggles too, and so you can love each other and sometimes still disagree. So, with what we know in the association world is that consensus is very difficult to have on an ongoing basis. And so, like any good family, I'm sure that as you're growing, you're running into situations where there are challenges with, like, well, what do we do next? What's the next step? How do we define who we are, as an association, as we grow, and as you approach some of those growing pains. And so, are you far enough along where you've come into any of those, or are you fortunately able to avoid them to this far?
Excellent point. You again pointing out an absolutely accurate point, because we are just there. We're
Mm.
still looking for finding ourselves somehow, but we do progress in some actions. For example, we are at the moment building an access to member in our website so they can share confidential informations between them. So, for
Mm.
example, a
Mhm.
CV that is public onto LinkedIn, of course, we know that there are things that you can't mention because they are confidential. However, between members, we have got DNAs that we have all signed off, which means that we can share very sensitive information, and this in order to work better together in future. So for
Mhm.
example, if there's a client when one of our members used to work in the past 10 years and needs two other members to work with him or her. In this case, there is a need to be familiar with those sensitive information to work better rather than someone who's not been trained or been familiar with the situation of this client. And then this is part of the things that we explain to our client. If you work with us, we know each other, so you're going to save a lot of time. We know how difficult things can be, especially when people are coming from different culture, to work good together. Working together is one thing. Working efficiently together is a different kind of challenge. So yeah, now to answer the question, a very good point. We are just there. We're just progressing as we speak. The other two challenges that we face are, one, our members do work in different environments,
Mhm.
medical, sport, corporate. So we do face different challenges, and our work environment is slightly different, despite the culture or the country of origin. Second one, I would say also it's an association of independent, so 100% of independent. And by
Okay.
nature, by definition, a person who's independent likes to be independent. So when you start
Yeah.
saying, you must do this, I want you to do that, well, it's
They
really,
say,
really hard
"Why?"
to do.
I know, "Do it my way." I know, I know. Consultants, right? Everywhere. Worldwide, we're all kind of the same. But we're different. And I love the idea that that you are sort of reining in these leaders and these entrepreneurial types to help everybody help themselves, to help everything for the good of each consultant, and also for the good of the planet and for the good of the event planners that we work with. So I think that it's a very exciting time to have this association that you're growing along with your business. And now you're approaching IMEX America. Now, IMEX America, um, as you're going into that, talk to me and share with the audience a little bit about your own goals when you are approaching it. Are you approaching it with the international consultants hat, with the Pleni hat, with the I want to connect and who knows what happens hat, as the teach with the professor's hat on? What? How are you approaching this IMEX America?
Hmm. I think it's a bit of everything, all of what you've
Hmm.
mentioned. First, the association, which somehow is a continuity or logical pursuing of the company, because we work a lot with internationals, so we were in need of finding reliable partners of the same level of conversation. That's really, really important. Many of us are still with PCMA. I'm also an MPI member, or from ILEA, and we like those large scale associations. However, the level of conversation will be slightly different. We're not going to get the same, of course, from those conversations with the whole community versus our own little independent community working international. So we got lots of criteria, and uh, but they complete each other. So we need both. So the IC basically was. Making perfect sense in my activity with Pleni because I was in need of finding those partners. Also, it's a two-way street for business because, of course, we can send some business and we can also get some business in return. So it really works both ways. So I would say first the association, then, of course, the business because I'm an exhibitor, but I'm also somehow a bit of a buyer because I've got my own events as well. You're absolutely right. So I'm going to go and shake hands of my partners or different destination where I might have events in future or confirmed events. And then, yes, for the teaching part, and that's also the reason why I posted over LinkedIn a few of those insights of my trip here on the West Coast
Mhm.
at convention centers. I feel it's really, really interesting and talks a lot about the culture, the place, the way people think event. And that's really interesting for the students starting a career in the event industry because it shows that there is no one way. There are multiple ways and it's for you to dig a little bit deeper into understanding those culture. And there's no one good method in the event industry. You got plenty of ways to deliver the things. It's just that you've got to match with the people so the delivery is smooth and working properly, rather than going into conflict because you think you're right and you say, I want you to do this. Well, that does not work.
Right, right. And it's I do love how you're teaching as you go along, because I saw your post that on LinkedIn that had to do with the Las Vegas Convention Center as a venue. How did it stand out as a unique case study for event planners? Can you share a little bit about that? I thought it was really interesting. I'm not sure if everybody else will, but I think they will. So, could you share a little bit about what you saw in that?
Absolutely. Originally when I was preparing my first courses with, it was about international event production, which is basically my passion, and I was preparing this lecture with uh, some examples worldwide, and I
Mhm.
found out that Vegas really stands out. Vegas is unique.
Okay.
You can't compare Vegas to anything else in the whole world. I'm not sure if the Americans do weigh that.
I don't
Um,
I don't think so, and that's why I want to hear more about that, because you have experience everywhere. I mean, like, reading through the bio, talking to you, um, looking through where you've worked all over the world, you really can speak to this knowledgeably. And so, what do you see when you visit Las Vegas as far as what's possible that's different from other places?
yeah, well, first of all, I was guided by Steve Kyung, who's one of our members. He's the
Mhm.
local in Vegas. He's been here 47 years, so he knows the place really, really
He
well.
knows.
And works on the largest show in Vegas. No, what is exceptional and what is different and unique is that basically there was a lot of will from the government, from the county, from the city to say, okay, the game is one thing, the casino is one thing, but quite frankly, they were ahead of time thinking we need to have some other business sources. And this is basically how the event industry basically was born and pushed to its maximum extremely early,
Mhm.
59, 59 were probably, I mean, the first convention centers were much older than that, but at that scale, it was pretty early days. And then we know, if I was to make a comparison with Riviera or Côte d'Azur in France, we know that this region with Cannes, Nice, and Monaco are way
Mhm.
ahead of any other region in France because they've started extremely early, like Vegas. The earlier you start, the better. Because of course you gain in experience, in maturity, into having those repeat business coming to you. So the more you do, the better and the sharper your tool becomes. So that's one of the aspects. The other one is, yeah, there was this will of the public authorities to say, yes, let's make it big and large. So we're going to catch the largest event. CES being
Mhm.
one of them. CES is over 50 years old now. So the fact that the business is coming back is proof of quality and the fact that there is this relationship that is growing both ways and working well. So that's one of the aspects. The other one also being that if you look at, for example, the aircraft coming from 158 destinations from all over
Yeah.
USA in direct flight, means a lot. It says it all. It means that yes, we need and we want you, and we will do what it takes, what it needs for that to happen. And once we have that, we know that it's a tool to get into our final destination, which is to catch the largest and the large scale events. So I really feel that they've ticked the boxes one by one to have their, I mean, to achieve their goal, which is
Mhm.
just a proof of efficiency and success. So congratulations to them.
Yeah. Well, and I put in, if you're watching this live or if you're catching this later, I put in the comments and I also flashed it on the screen a little bit earlier, Matt's LinkedIn. Just so even if you just follow him, connect and reach out. Matt's very friendly, but like also you can just follow and like he'll post really excellent posts from all over, things that he's learning, things that he's noticing that are really helpful for other people to pay attention to, especially if you're interested in the events industry. Associations need to pay attention to this too, because we're always looking for more information about where we should be hosting our meetings and things like that. Okay, so moving on, I want to talk a little bit about the role at like a grander sort of like a higher level that IMEX plays in the world, because IMEX America, IMEX Frankfurt, it's been around for a little while now, several years, and it's changed over time and evolved, but it's really become sort of the must attend event. You need to go to these meetings if you're going to be involved in the space, or at least it seems like that to me. What is your take on the impact that IMEX has had on the industry, and how has it impacted you personally?
Good point. I would say that, well, first of all, congratulations to the team who's putting the things
Mhm.
together. Because if you look at the last edition in Frankfurt, I mean, we've seen also the rebranding, the design, which means that they are capable of, questioning themselves, which is a proof
Yep.
of, again, being a kind of thinking ahead of time. I like the thing with the shaking hands that Karina was saying. I really like that, because that's all what IMEX is all about. It really is the meeting. We know that the in person is not something that's going to be replaceable. You've got to
Mhm.
at some point, so that probably is the right place, because you're going to meet people from all over the world at once. But when we
Mhm.
say all over the world, it really is what it is. So that's tremendous opportunities. The other one is, and as a sustainability point of view, because you probably avoid 20 moves, and make in only one. You concentrate several trips in one, so that's something we need to notify. The other one is the quality of the speakers. I think you mentioned that earlier. The quality of the talks. I was reading something just today about sustainability, artificial intelligence, lead by example. They are really, really, really interesting talks. And this is basically where not only you're going to watch and listen, but also you might have the opportunity to have an interaction with the person. And why not, like you said, I don't know, maybe do business together or collaborate on a project, and that's basically where the connection are made. I would say the other one, last but not least, would be also the length of the show. And you mentioned that, and I also mentioned that about the CES, being 50 years old. Uh,
Mhm.
we know that. That really is a strong and a deep belief I have. Long term is everything. Long term is everything. When you grow a relationship, when you grow a show, when you allow yourself in the long run to progress, this is where there is something happening. This
Mhm.
is where, little by little, detail by detail, you tweak, you arrange, you make it more and more, I would say, beautiful, better, you name it. And I feel some visitors who basically miss the show once, twice, or three times, comes to times where they say, well, I gotta go. I
Yeah.
gotta go, because it's there, it lasts. So if it does last, it means something. And I
Mhm.
think that's probably where the team is really good at, into progressing years after years. And
Mhm.
through the COVID, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. I wondered during the COVID years, everything was, we were all kind of looking around like, what's going to last? What's going to hold out? Right. Scary time. And watching how IMEX, navigated that, and what happened right after too, in coming together, was very, very interesting. And I think, ASAE annual, the American Society of Association Executives just held their annual meeting in Atlanta, and I attended. And very similar to IMEX, it sort of represents. It's like the Association of Associations, so it represents a lot of bearing the example for other organizations, for other associations on what they should do and how they might be able to approach things. Similarly, I mean, if you can imagine, when you go to something like IMEX, you're looking at, what is the best way that you can approach learning? What is an innovative way that you can approach connecting people? And it because of that, I think it's so hard for it to meet people's expectations because they have people who are experts in all of these areas attending saying, I can do better than that. I've seen, but poking holes at it. But at the same time, for people who want to get an overall large collection of ideas of things that they can apply in many different areas. This is sort of the meeting that you can go to, and you can get a lot of very different ideas in a lot of different areas that are helpful in applying to all kinds of different meetings across the space. And I do think that the education opportunities are incredible. I get a chance to participate in that a little bit for the Association Power Hour this year, which is I'm very excited about. But I do think that the education is wonderful because they have all kinds of different formats. They typically keep them short and interesting and to the point so that people can move from spot to spot. And it's always really interesting to see the areas in which they're trying new things. So I'm very excited about going to this one. I am.
Excellent. Yeah. Yesterday, I had the chance to meet with Julius
Mhm.
Solaris in Vegas. Caught a little bit of his time, and we were just talking about what you mentioned about the opportunity to go and meet in person versus following an event in digital, and watching a person on stage. It's been a debate for a long, long time. Um, Very, very difficult to say this is good, this is bad. I think we need both, and sometimes basically yes, you can't basically move physically, but I think it's important to have the opportunity to combine different activities at once. Exactly what you were
Yeah.
mentioning. You're gonna meet some people on a booth. You're gonna have this education thing. Gonna have the networking on another. Maybe you're gonna extend your stay to do some business development on your own while being in
Yeah.
this particular destination. So it is up to you to combine and make it a very interesting trip rather than, yes, going into a solo activity, whereas probably that was the mentality or the activity we had by the past. And probably today people are weighing a little bit more, uh,
Mhm.
paying attention to the time spent. Is it really worth it? And yeah, I think you make a good trip when you come back in your bag with a lot of different insights. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so I have to ask you the question that I love to ask of people who are steeped in the industry, who pay a lot of attention to not just how are we putting the actual physical event together, but in the technology of it all too. And so, what are you seeing that might be the biggest challenges facing the events industry today as you see it?
Hmm. That's a difficult one.
It
Um,
is.
well, I mean, the easy answer, I'm sorry to say, on my side would be the artificial intelligence, because it can be a really tree being shaked very, very
Mhm.
brutally. I like technology, and I like to think that it's going to be a progress and a better rather than a danger or a threat whatsoever.
Mhm.
It's my view, but it could be dangerous. It
Mhm.
could be dangerous, definitely. I mean, some people we've seen were losing their jobs and everything. Yes, we can't avoid that. But I think it's a shift, and it is up to us human beings to make it a positive revolution rather than one. fighting against it. We've seen in the past that the things that we try to fight against, most of the time, they're stronger than you. But accompany it in a positive way to make it, again, as positive as possible, and make it to serve the human beings, not the other way around. But yeah, that could be one of the points. The other one is probably attendance for the shows.
Mm-hmm.
We discussed about it again yesterday with Julius. It's a really hot topic at the moment, and not only for corporate shows or exhibition, because those are the ones that we think of immediately, but the whole range of events, including sports or politics or anything. What makes it an event you absolutely must attend versus an event that is really, really good, but maybe a
Yes.
pass, or two, probably a level three. Well, I'm not gonna go. It's not good
Mm-hmm.
enough. And basically, if you don't offer me a content that is qualitative enough, well, forget about me. I'm not going. Very, very, very hard one because, again, talking about sustainability, talking about long term, it is really important because the attendance is basically what fuels your event. Remove that, and the
Yeah.
whole pyramid, the whole value chain falls apart. And to be honest, we've seen after the COVID, I think, a return to in-person event with probably too many events, with probably a concentration of too many, as we had during the COVID period, too many digital events
Mm-hmm.
as well. And we know that too much is too much. It comes a time where it becomes counterproductive. So we're going back to that, up to the event manager to find the right geography, the right location, the right format, where and how, the length of the event. Anything can be movable or thought of, and not necessarily like, okay, we've done always 3 days in Atlanta, we're going to do 3 days in Atlanta. Well,
Mm-hmm.
get out of your comfort zone and think ahead. I could mention, for example, one of the clients we got the lucky to follow, which is Moving On, for example. Moving On, who's a combination of 14 different companies working as a think tank about sustainable mobility, and where they used to have their event in Montreal, Canada, and they relocated it in Brussels, Europe, because a majority of their visitors were based in Europe. So it
Mm-hmm.
was making sense that basically we need to relocate our event. So I think it is time to dig a little bit deeper into who are your attendants, so who are your visitors, who are the one you target, and probably make it the way it's going to serve them and not the other way around because you've done it in the past 10 years.
I mean, I think it's fascinating to hear you talk about this because from an association standpoint, I'm always thinking about the reason we have these events. It's to bring people together. It's to help cultivate and solidify relationships that are meaningful to the people who are participating. And for an association, there's a great value in being able to do that. I mean, for any organization that's doing it, but for associations where you have memberships, that's often part of the value proposition is creating community as part of that, right? And so what's fascinating to me is that during COVID, and I know it's still with us, but while it was a pandemic that we were all staying home from, it seemed to really drive home the importance of figuring out ways that we could either make events where we could meet regionally rather than having everybody come to one spot, or that we could figure out a way to offer virtual components, and usually kind of both. And what we've been seeing happening on the association industry side is that there's been a swing to a lot of organizations going to having the in-person events, but sort of dismissing this other idea of what are some of the ways that we can have more regional and and smaller meetings versus having the great big mega events that we're all used to. I think, in looking at what is happening with climate change and severe storms and disruptive politics in different parts of the world, that there are all kinds of reasons to figure out why we should be looking for smaller, more regional meetings to cultivate these relationships and also not throw away our online virtual components of those meetings, and I'm curious to hear what you have to say. I think I'm preaching to the choir. I think that this is something that you agree with too.
No, no,
um
100%. I mean, you're pointing it out, and I couldn't agree more with what you're saying, because I'm saying the pressure and sustainability in Europe is so high, and I use the
yeah.
word pressure on purpose because I feel it's a positive pressure. I think it should be like that all over the world. It's not the case, but it is a pressure because for some people who do not have the mentality, I mean, in Europe, they feel it as a constraint where it shouldn't be. It should be the way forward, and that's it.
Hmm.
But the
Hmm.
reality is that because of this pressure, what I feel into a gray zone at the moment is because, okay, let's not use the plane. Let's not move people with the plane. Okay, but you work international. Now then, can you not use the digital component for it? Because you've got to link people together without being able to travel with a plane. You've got to work with digital. At the
Right.
moment, if you have another option, another solution that is not using a plane or using digital for event at international scale, please share it with me. At the moment, I feel a bit frustrated because I hear on one side, we're not going to move with a plane. Okay, fair enough, and that's good. But on another, oh yeah, but we don't like digital events. Digital is not as good
Right.
as in person. Well, so what's happening in the moment in Europe? Uh, People get into those train destinations. So many
Hmm.
cities are accessible by train. Talk about
Hmm.
Frankfurt, talk about London, Barcelona, you talk about Milan, so or Geneva. I mean, loads of capitals are accessible by train, which is great. But then, of course, if you're talking about outside of the continent where a plane is needed, what we've done in the past years a lot, and I'm happy with this kind of format, are definitely hybrid events, whereas you
Hmm.
have studios with X people talking with X attendance that can be just like you said, local and regional,
Hmm.
50, 100, 300, 500 people, but those hubs are linked together with maybe three, four, five hubs. And we did one several months ago with Melbourne, with Rio in Brazil, with New York, with Paris. So, and that is definitely something, in my view, for those corporate events, the way forward, because you've got a bit of both. You've got this in person experience, you've got those worldwide experience, and you've got the sustainability achievements. So I like this format. And
Hmm.
until now, that's the one I think that is ticking the boxes.
I mean, and this is a complicated discussion, I know, when I go into talking about budgeting, but usually where the conversation stops is people say then, because I can hear them in my ear, I can just imagine them as if they're standing with me right now. They say, "But Kiki, hybrid is expensive. We're an association, we're a nonprofit. We cannot do hybrid in a way that is not going to break the bank." And to that, I usually say, well, there are all kinds of options, so many ways to do these things that don't have to break the bank. Um, in your opinion, do you think that it's a matter of just taking a look at the way that the business model is set up for the meeting, or what do you think? When you hear that same refrain coming from people saying, "Yeah, but hybrid's too expensive," what's your go-to? What's the thing that you say back to them?
Hmm. Tricky one because I'm with you 100%. This is the kind of thing we hear a lot of time, also because there's a lack of education or lack of maturity into this particular field of event. And of course, because we do not have the same past experience in
Mm-hmm.
digital as the one we had with in-person events. So there is a need to explain and justify the reason why and so on. And also the technology is still a little baby stage as we speak. There still is this conflict between the IT culture and the event culture, where people are, forced to work together, but their mind is different.
Yeah.
So and
Yeah.
in the end, you make a baby event that is sometimes successful, but sometimes really frustrating because it goes into multiple ways. I'm not answering the question. So to be honest with you, I do not have perfect answers, though.
Mhm.
I had a chance to experience a lot of different platform providers, startups in France, in Europe, worldwide. And IC is great in that particular regards because we share our experience. I've worked with
Mhm.
this Dutch provider. I've worked with this Mexican provider. Okay, great. Um, there is a price for any sort of event. And yes, of course, you can do things that are cheap and it will be the quality you expect and you'll be very happy with it. For corporate level, probably you need to spend a little bit more. My view is at some point you need to have the trust into the event manager. We go back into that. Trust a person who's got the experience, who've done 15, 20, 30 shows in digital. I've done more than 30 already, and I'm happy about that because that gave me a lot of experience and a lot of things that I know. Oh, this is dangerous. Oh, done that. It's not really for you, this kind of thing. So you've got to trust the person who's got a little bit of experience into it. And my point is about the maturity of the client. I'm going back into that. So either my client is mature enough to listen to the advice and say, okay, if you trust them, I will trust you because you trust them and let's go for it. Or the level of expectation we have will definitely match what you propose. Okay, go ahead with it. But if the person is too much into, well, I'm going to do it from home because that's going to cost me zero, and we heard
Mhm.
that a lot of time. Yes, of course. In the short term, yes, you're right. In the long term, certainly not, because we know that we're going to experience technical difficulties, the frame, the lighting, a lot of
Yeah.
things we need, to make you in the best environment so you are at your best for the best event possible. And this is the part that the client would not consider. So we engage the conversation, but if there is no maturity in the conversation, say, okay, no, I stop there. I would not spend the time to try to convince the person because it means that the person is not ready to listen any sort of argument yet. It means that the person needs to do 3, 4, 5 shows of the same kind, and then we can talk together. This is
Mm.
too early. So I'm not the right person to talk with. And I discovered that also with the international shows where some clients have already had bureaus or subsidiaries in different countries where they know the country by heart, what they're going to get, the pricing, the bank holidays, and so on. Whereas some other places, the client doesn't know the place, would tell you it's too expensive, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that, and would not understand the culture, the local culture. So in there, the conversation becomes a bit tricky because, again, if you do not trust the person and what you want is impossible to be delivered in the said country, well, I think it's a
Yeah.
dead end and we've got to reconsider.
Well, and I'm going to actually, if people are watching live or if they're watching the recording later, also check your notes. There's a link to the IC because this is such an important point. When you are looking for reputable sources, you're sourcing for events in different places. This is an association that can help you and can give you a lot of information in that regard. Also, if you want to belong, if you want to become a member and collaborate and find out more about how you can help each other, this is also a great resource. So I just wanted to put that up there again. Speaking of collaboration, and we've talked about that a lot, one thing is that, when we're talking about big problems like looking at climate change and sustainability and thinking about conquering big problems, how we do that together, we have to figure out how to work with others. The family of IC, the family of different consultants who are coming together, the family that is the meetings industry that comes together at IMEX. We've talked about collaboration for association events and reasons that members get together. Where do you go? Where does Matt Regniér go to collaborate? Obviously, I see. What are some other places that you tend to go to rather, whether it be in person or online? Do you have some favorites?
Huh. Um, Believe it or not, I'm trying to go into what is not event
Mm-hmm.
to think a little bit out of the box and see how the world is thinking rather than how the event industry is thinking, because sometimes
Yes.
this is one of our default, too much into down layers, and we need to take a bit of a height and an overview about the system, because what we think we propose is right is actually wrong in the world. And this is probably why also artificial intelligence is far bigger than us,
Yeah.
as a world point of view. So that would be the first one. So listening to people who are our niche stars, like you are, for example, into other industries, the thought leaders of other industries. That would be the first one. Um, TED Talk can be magical, of course. I'm not reinventing the wheel saying that, but yeah, sometimes it's really, really qualitative. And I do love the in person meetings. This is the reason why I'm trying to not multiply, but to choose the right trips to do, to meet the right people, the right community. I always try to get one day before or 1 or 2 days after to have the time to do my scanning of the area,
Mm.
of the providers, of the freelancers, of the agencies, of the clients, and the world that is not the event world of the area. And all those components mixed together give me some sort of a read of the place and say, okay, I see basically what I can and can't do. Now, then, why do I do that? Is also because the borders between provider and client, agency and startup, freelancer and agency, you name it, are so blurry. I mean, it's so close, and today it's such a gray area because the person who's going to call himself herself an agency, uh, another person would say, "Well, I'm a freelancer," and maybe another one would say, "I'm a startup." Um, you really need to dig deeper into who you're talking with, what sort of excellent skills the person or the group have.
Mhm.
That's very important to me. I mean, what is it? What is it? Their best skill? Because today the reality is that from one country to another, you're not going to have the same. And one of the big mistake our client do is, okay, I'm looking for pum 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 pum, but your criteria are the criteria of your country. In there, what you're asking does not exist, or you either need to combine into different individuals, or you might have someone who not only does that but does much more than that, so what you're going to propose is not enough for her or him.
Mhm.
So reading that, having an understanding of the ecosystem is absolutely key for what we do. And it's over event, it's more geopolitic somehow.
Oh, and of course, I have the typical response where it would be, well, what's the easiest way to figure out from place to place what the appropriate skill set is for different types of requirements, right? Is there a resource that I can go to? Or is it simply that you're having to connect with like someone like yourself, someone who knows the industry in different countries and different locations around the world. when there is an association meeting planner watching this that's based in the United States and they say, I run into this problem all the time. What is there an answer? Is there an answer, Matt? Where do I go? What do you
For sure.
say?
I've
The
got the
pressure
pressure.
is on. Yes.
No, it's an excellent one. I would say that yes, of course, IC can be a good source of information because we've got nothing to sell but
Hmm.
brain juice, and that's something very important to mention. We have nothing to sell but brain juice, and it's true that we also created this association because by the past we were going into different other source of information, such as convention bureau, providers, venue, blah blah blah, which is great, but they have
Yeah.
something to sell. So the business might go into a certain direction. The neutrality of the IC member is key to us because we're not after driving the business into a different direction. We're after making the event a success. And especially the client to be happy with this international experience. Now then, you have an excellent question. I would say that it depends again on the maturity of the market. Say Dubai, say Middle East. In the Middle East, when I landed there in 2011 and I spent 5 years until 2015 in the Middle East, between Qatar and the UAE, they were already having the Source Me book. Source Me is a book where you have the whole event community in a book, digital paper, and in there you've got country per country, city per city, all the deco, set building, IT, AV, catering, you name it. They're all there, which is great. And they said
Mhm.
we need to do that because our clients, when they get into the Middle East, are lost, and that's going to help them. That's going to drive business to us. Congratulations. Do every single place in the world have done that? No. Some other startups or companies have done that. We're gonna make some reference of companies to give them business. For example, Committee in France. Agathe, she's a good friend of mine, has created Committee in France, where you can source per city, per region, different providers per niche skill set. I would say that it really depends on the maturity of the market because I'm sure in the US, depending on the state or the city, you probably have source of information really, really nicely ordered. And in some others, it is up to you to fight to get the information. So
Yeah.
again, that shows how involved the convention community, the event community would be, because you're absolutely right. It's a key tool. And if you make it easy for people to catch the information, it means that you probably are looking forward for more business and an easier pathway of people to get to know, to be known, rather than the other way around saying, okay, well, event is event, but we have many other things to look after.
Wow. I think that this has been such a great conversation. I know that I have talked about a lot. I've talked about IMEX. I've talked about the meeting industry as a whole, challenges faced, what it takes to start an association and like why IC was created. And you've been so great about answering all of my questions. So thank you so much, Matt. I really appreciate you joining us today. If people want to reach out to you, is it okay for me to share your LinkedIn information one more time?
And thank you very much. And thank you for having me. It was such a pleasure to have a conversation with you. And yeah, no, by all means, please, of course.
All right, wonderful. And I look forward to seeing you at IMEX very soon. It's not that far
Absolutely.
away.
It's going to be a pleasure. October is not far away indeed. Yes.
Yes. Well, safe travels, my friend. And thank you for joining me. What did you think? Wasn't it fantastic? I absolutely adore Matt, and I think that he offers a lot of interesting information for us, not just to think about like how you're sourcing in different locations and how to do things sustainably, but also thinking about really the why behind why we do all of these things, like attending meetings, huge meetings like IMEX, or when we're going and thinking about putting together a meeting, why we consider the hybrid component, or why it might not be the right choice, or why we need to ask more questions. So ultimately, curiosity wins. With that, I think I will leave you for this week, and I hope you found this chat very interesting. As always, I hope you continue to ask questions and keep searching every day, because, as Joseph Campbell once said, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. Wow. Some meaningful thoughts for the rest of this week. I hope you have a great rest of the week, everyone.